Hi technicians, it's Jen from DraftLine, and today we're going to do a tutorial on how to use the DraftLine mobile application. This particular one is iOS. There will be an Android video forthcoming on the YouTube channel as well. So once you get logged in with your email address and password, this is what you are going to see, or this is an example that will be similar to what you'll see. Up at the top of the screen, we've got a couple of buttons that I'd like you to know about, even though you might not use them very often. The By Date button, if you click that, this is what brings up the calendar icon at the very top right that you will click on, and this is how you bounce forward and backwards between your days. Now, that being said, because you have the ability to do that, it doesn't mean that we actually want you to do that. We want you to always work on the scheduled day and never ever work outside of a calendar week, because everything we're trying to do is keep all those line cleanings on a 2-week schedule where possible. We know there's exceptions of 4-week accounts here and there, especially for venues, but wherever possible, we want you to stay on the scheduled date. If you cannot, that is when you contact support and ask them to make either one-time or permanent changes to those line cleaning trips. And that's some lingo you'll hear a lot on DraftLine, one-time or permanent changes, because one-time doesn't affect your schedule moving forward. Permanent affects it forever moving forward. So for instance, if something's closed, you can't ever clean it on a Monday, it has to be Tuesdays. That's something we definitely need to know about, because as we go through the startup phase and as you maintain your routes, we want to make sure that they're always in good working order, in the right sequence from first, second, third stop to last stop, and throughout the week that the days are actually sitting in a way where you can get them accomplished. That's really, really important. So there's a lot more upkeep on DraftLine than a paper route card, but at the same time, it's good accounting. So then up at the top left, you see these 3 bars. I'm going to click on that. This is where we can add our own avatar. I like to have everybody's picture because we know who we're talking to, but it's up to you. You can add your favorite car, just as long as it's a nice photo. So you can either take photo or choose photo. When you get into that, you're going to get a pop-up that asks you to give DraftLine permission to work with your camera. So you have to allow that. And when you go to download the app for the first time, even before you log in, you're going to see some other permissions that relate to this settings tab. And it has to do with Google Maps and checking for messages. You want to make sure that you allow all those. Not so much the Google Maps though, because I have an Apple Watch, so I leave that one off. Preview directions you always want to be able to use, although the majority of our line cleaners, unless they're new, know exactly where their accounts are. And then also check for new messages. 100% leave that enabled. I need to get a hold of all you guys to make sure we get those lines cleaned. I'm going to click on the 3 bars up at the top again. The last thing on this page right now that I want you to worry about is About. And this is where you can see the version of the mobile application. And in the release notes, we will tell you which one it is. I think it's 1.0.25 once it's posted in the store today, but we'll let you know for sure. So if you have an out-of-date app, this is where you go on your app to check. At the end of every single month, we will send out an email to our managers to say, hey, these technicians need to update their phone. So make sure that you just leave your auto updates on, and then we won't ever have to bother you about that. But if you choose incorrectly on any of those permissions, you can always just delete the app the way you normally would delete something. Everything's saved, it's cloud-based, you're good to go. Then reinstall and choose a little more carefully. So here I'm going to click on trips, and this is where we're going to dive into our first line cleaning. So the trips are ordered on this day, and this is what I call the sequence. Of course, this is my test account, so I've got some extras on here, but I'm going to click into the Town Pump Tavern, so it doesn't matter which order you run them in, but at the end of it, in the end of the startup phase, we want to make sure that they're sequenced appropriately. Up at the top of the screen, you're going to see the Town Pump Tavern account name. Under that, we've got a photo, and then directions, date and time of the line cleaning. And again, this just stacks it or sequences it in your day. You don't have to check in at that particular time, but where it says August 25th, that's when I want you to clean it for sure. Now, I say that knowing sometimes our routes don't execute the way we would like them to, but clean on the day that is scheduled. Under that, we have our trip title, which is line cleaning, and Under that, there's a small section here where we can put in extra notes, and that would expand to fit the page. So, for instance, if you need a cooler code to get in, if you have to call a certain phone number to be let into the building, if they have hydrostatic beer pumps and you can never recirculate, anything that you need to know that you should see every single time that you click into that account, we should put that there. Some accounts have particular items like that, some don't. Under that, you see a bar to swipe to call. Many of our service centers in the early days don't have the phone numbers added, but if our technicians pass those on to us through the notes or through support, we're very happy to put those in for you. Under that, the technician photo, name, and avatar, or I'm sorry, the avatar's to the left, but right here, this little alien icon, this means I'm the foreman, so I'm responsible for the checkout options. Now, that being said, for every single line cleaning, we are going to have a check-in, we are going to have a checkout. That's going to be on the next page that we go to. What drives our line cleanings to the completed status is checking out and setting it as a completed line cleaning. There is also a big significance there when it comes to billing. We have reports to catch everything that you could make a mistake on or not execute on correctly on DraftLine, at least on the mobile application part. But we want to make sure everyone's using it correctly to cut down on the administrative time. So make sure for every account where you are doing work, you have checked in before you enter the building, you are checking out after you leave the building after you've loaded up all your supplies. And we'll talk about that a little more here on the tasks page. So now we're going to move from left to right. I've clicked on the tasks page. Up the top left, safety first guidelines. Gloves and goggles, my friend, always make sure you use them. It avoids 95% of issues that we see out in the field. As well, pH paper wherever possible. I highly recommend. It's just a great step in your process to add if you're not doing it already. Bottom right, you're going to see a green circle with an arrow. We're going to click this. This is what checks us in. Simple as that. Click it, turns blue. That starts the timer ticking for our trip. Okay, and in the middle of the screen, we have our line cleaning work and we have our faucet work as well. Underneath here, you see no work. This little area is a visual indicator to our technicians to let them know, hey, you haven't done these screens yet. Nobody looks at those. It's just for you. When we're finished, it's going to say partially completed, and that's okay. It's as it should be. So let's click into our line cleaning steps. I'm going to click on the gray bubble. Up at the top, you see this is a glycol system, and we have all the steps for performing a recirculation with acid cleaning or a static cleaning with also an acid clean at the end. Now, you will always click regular maintenance no matter what process you're using, recirc or static. 97% of the market uses the static process, so I'm going to tick that box. So regular maintenance, static. Every time we put in a check mark, we have to save it and send it back. We're simply going to go back to the bottom right of this screen and click the circle with the check mark. That saves it and automatically pops you back to our tasks page. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the line cleaning in that gray bubble. And let's say this time I didn't do a static cleaning, I did a recirculation cleaning, regular maintenance, recirc. As simple as that. You guys are doing this 8 to 15 times a day. You know what it is. Just make sure you check two boxes, either regular maintenance recirc or regular maintenance and static. You can always go in and override the steps that you put in. At the bottom right, just like I've done here, I've overridden the static cleaning. At the bottom right, every time you put the check mark in, we got to save it and send it back. I'm going to click that again, the green circle with the check mark. Brings us back to the tasks page. That's it. It's simple. Now, the more complicated steps are going to be on our faucet page. So I'm going to click on the orange bubble. We have retired the old style faucet page. That was one of our initial screens that had very few updates in favor of this. This is now our system page. This is where we take our tap survey. This is where we can add new faucets right here if you scroll across on the tower and click that plus sign. This is where we check mark which lines we're cleaning. This is where we track all of our brands. So The first time you go in, this is going to just be numeric, okay? So the tower will be there and it will have a certain number of faucets associated with it. Numbers 1 through whatever. I've got a lot here. You see faucets 8 and 9 don't have any brands. This is where we have to go through and enter our tap survey. Every time you go into an account, before you start check marking your faucets, but after you get the chemical pumping through the lines, busting down the faucets, once you get towards the end of the service, once you're up and running, this is when you'll put all this information in. We've got to go through bartender view, as if you're the bartender standing in front of the tower. Faucet number 1 is on your far left. The last faucet is on your far right. So as with all things draft, we're going to work from left to right. We're going to do that every single time. In our startup meetings, if we have any very particular or complicated system setups, excuse me, we will go through those and we'll walk through what working to your left means, okay, and then labeling left to right. So in this example, I am going to swipe across on faucet number 8, although normally you would start on 1, obviously, and I'm going to enter a brand. This one has no brand, so for this I'm going to type in Bud. First 3 letters you type it in, it brings up everything in your drop-down menu. I am going to select Bud Light, click OK, and you will get a pop-up message that says request send successful. We've had to add little messages so you guys know that you're communicating with us correctly. And see on faucet number 8 right here, it's already auto-approved. So this is an example of a brand that is already in the system and is assigned a distributor. And you see this little gear pop up to the right. That means, hey technician, this is a brand that belongs to us. We should be cleaning it. So whether you're a third-party company or you're a beer wholesaler, that is a visual indicator to tell you this line belongs to you. Is it always 100% correct? No. But if we keep our information up to date and make sure that we're working through it every week, it becomes more and more and more accurate. So if you know there's a mistake, go ahead and clean that line. Always put a note in, and we'll make sure that the automations are working well. Now, on faucet number 9, let's do another example. I'm going to give you an example of a brand that is not existing in DraftLine already. So I'm going to say coffee ale, and I'm going to misspell it too. So nothing's coming up in the drop-down menu, but I'm going to click OK. It's fine to freeform enter brands, especially for those little craft brands out in the market, the microbreweries. We need to track all those. So we want to make sure that you have a way to freehand enter things. And we also don't want to overburden those drop-down lists with brands that aren't in your market. So that's our mechanism for letting you add that. And again, the request send successful pops up. Now, the difference here on faucet number 9 is that coffee ale is in the pending status. It did not get auto accepted as faucet number 9. It's sitting there pending. And one of the DraftLine cloud support team members will go in, look at it, we'll contact your supervisor, say, hey, who does this brand belong to? We'll either find who it is or put it as independent, and then we'll decide if it's serviceable or not. Normally, our techs out in the field know exactly which brands they're cleaning. So you could do an override on that, click it as serviced, and save at the bottom right because you know it's a small brewery that you've picked up. You just haven't seen that brand before. That's fine. So we need to collect all the brands, ours and competitors. And I know it's a lot of work, but we have a little golden rule to help you out. On startup 15 faucets or over, we will enter the brands for you. You just either have to get us a handwritten list on a napkin, a photo of the beer towers and make it a good photo, not a bad photo, or a beer menu, a picture of a beer menu, and let us know which ones you cleaned. Most of it's obvious to us though, because we know the distributors you're cleaning for. So get the information to us, 15 or over, we will enter it for you. The next time you go into this account to take the survey, everything will be updated in there. And you only have to enter the brands that have flipped. So say for instance, on faucet number 2, Miller Lite is no longer Miller Lite. I'm going to click on this pencil. I'm swiping across. Let's say this is switched to a Bud Light. Okay. You get the pop-up, and again, you see it's popped up very quickly. So example number one, this is where I've done a faucet change already that hasn't been accepted, so it's grayed out. And we only let you enter the faucet changes one time. Way back in the day, we used to have people going through and entering brands, like 50 brands on one faucet. we had to find a way to lock that out. It makes it a little more obvious to the technician that, oh, I've got to go to number 2 and now number 3 and now number 4. So again, bartender view left to right, all the brands, yours and competitors, and making sure that you're keeping it up all the time. First time is the hardest time. This is usually where people say, I don't think I like this now, but I do promise you, once you get in contact with the cloud support and you see how easy they make it for you to keep up this information, I haven't lost anybody yet. Most of our technicians are quite happy as well. Faucet number 15, I want everybody to note and see how that says open. Open means a tap or a faucet is there, but there's no beer pouring on it currently. Open is a very valid answer on DraftLine because we're mapping out all the beer systems, and at some point we want to be able to predict where we can get more placements for our products. So it's key that our technicians map all that information. So definitely take note of that. Now, every time we put a check mark in on DraftLine, this means I service this item. So we have a way to do it manually, like this, just going through and putting check marks next to each of the lines. Or up at the top, we can do select all serviceable faucets. And when we click that bar across the top, you will see that for all the brands that belong to our organization, it's putting check marks next to them. I highly recommend using it, especially as you get faster, because it's just a quick shortcut. But when you use that, remember the coffee ale example, we might have to go through and check mark a couple of extra. So you always want to check your work before you do your final save. And you can save multiple times like we will have done today. So at the bottom right, we're going to save it with a circle with the check mark. And again, you'll get that pop-up that says it was saved. So there's a lot going on this page, but on this latest update with this little gear to the right to say, hey, this is where work should be done, I think it's going to be very helpful for our technicians as a guide. It's not 100%, but you've got to use your most important computer, which is your brain, and then this helper computer, which is your mobile device. And between the two of them, we usually have great success. So remember that. I can't think of anything else on this page except for the tower. If you swipe across, click the plus sign, this will add a faucet to the very far right. So for this one, let's do Miller Lite, click OK. Now, this is great if you have 2 or 3. The problem is with it is you won't see those brands pop up right away as serviceable, so there won't be any box next to it. So if you get into an account, and this is especially true for the early days, you walk in and you realize, oh, I'm at the Town Pump Tavern, but it's not a glycol system with one station, two towers. This is actually a direct draw system with a main bar that has 2 towers, a patio bar that has 1 tower, and then say a, what do you call it? A convention bar, or like an events catering area. So I've got to add a lot more to the system and rework it. Perfect example of why you should call DraftLine support. Call them right when you get to the account, especially in your first startup phase, and they will update that within 10 minutes or less. We are at the ready waiting for you guys and gals to call us with this type of information. You will tell us what the system setup is, and on DraftLine it's always direct draw, air-cooled, or glycol. And then of course we name our stations. This one's named main bar. And like I said, patio bar, service bar, whatever it is, we'll label it. We want to make it simple and obvious. All the towers with the right number of faucets. And we want you to let us know that prior to starting to put all the brand information in on each tower. because we don't want you to have to do extra work and we don't want to have to do extra work on our side. And if we line it up with the correct number of spaces for you to enter those brands in, it makes it so much easier for you and for us. So if you call, text, or email, within 10 minutes that will be done. We'll respond back to you and say, okay, this is all set, refresh your phone. And what that means is you just pull down on your screen. It contacts the server and all those changes come in, bam. So remember, first time you service an account, take a look at this system page that's under the faucets and make sure that everything's laid out correctly and communicate it to us if it isn't. Many times it is not on startup because nobody's mapped beer systems like this before. So just keep that in mind and help us out. Keep the faucet survey up to date every single time. We've got lots of reports coming that are in the beta phase right now that are telling our administrators where updates are happening and where they're not. So we want to make sure that you keep that information up to date. And this, remember again, 15 faucets or over, we will enter the information for you. So if you have a huge account, you're not ever going to enter that information every time. So for instance, 120 faucets, you're always going to send that to us first, and then we'll line everything up. One other thing to keep in mind is that on our side, we can copy towers and we can shuffle faucets. So for instance, if the only change on tower 1 is that Bud Light is no longer faucet number 1, it's now faucet number 29, just let us know and we'll change that. We can shuffle it, but you could very easily go here and add that information, but we don't expect you to retype out all those brands, if that makes sense. So just keep it in mind, we've got lots of shortcuts to help you. And let's move on to the notes. So the notes section is critically important, especially where we have accounts that we've gone into and they will not let us service. We've got to track those reasons. Good record keeping, my friends, makes for a much easier equity audit. So for here, anytime you go into an account and you cannot service that account, we have to have a note, okay? So too busy for lunch, and you hit the blue paper airplane. It's as simple as that. Everything's time-stamped on the notes, on your check-ins, on your checkouts, and on your signatures, and that's why it's vital that you enter all this information while you're actually at the account. So for any account that we considered the no work performed status, you must have a note. The great thing about putting notes in through this function is that they're all automatically saved to the trip tickets and they become searchable and our admins can see the information there. And if you're taking great notes and entering all the information as we talk about today, very rarely do we have to come back to you and ask information. So it's best to do it on site while you're there completely and accurately, and then we don't have any problems. As well, photos. So from here, this little photo icon to the bottom left of the screen, you just click on the camera and you can take a photo or choose a photo. And this is where you're going to get that pop-up if you didn't do your avatar through DraftLine on the settings page. And as well, on your faucet page, you're going to have a pop-up that you have to agree to as well for the tap surveys. Just a little warning. So here you're going to click Take Photo. You're going to see how messy my computer screen is. Click Use Photo, and boom, it's going to update. It is based on your internet speed, but you will get this upload completed message to let you know it was there, and you can go back and click into it and see that it's right there. So good record keeping is vital. And remember, when you send us photos of the beer towers so we can track those, make sure your ID handles are lined up really nicely. Make sure that you have wiped off your camera screen so we can see everything clear, and don't put your beautiful face in front of it. Make sure it's a clear photo of those towers. And so for instance, you could write Tower 1, send the note, and then take a photo. Hopefully this makes sense. Click, use photo, and it's off and running. And so give us some little indicators of the stuff that you're sending. Obviously it's not a beer tower, but you know what I mean. So document, document, document. I cannot stress it enough. So now I'm going to hit the back arrow at the top left by the trip title Town Pump Tavern. And We have done our tasks, we've already done our notes, we've done our system builder, and really quickly back on the tasks, this is where I said it was going to say partially completed, and it had the 3 dots. If you are a beer wholesaler, you will never do all of these steps. If you are a third-party company, your faucets could be complete at some point. And also, whichever line cleaning process you use, it's highly unlikely that you're going to use both at one account on one trip unless there's a serious problem. So make sure that you're not worried about this. Partially completed, again, a valid answer and as it should be. It's simply a visual indicator to let you guys and gals know that you were in there already. You don't have to go back out and fill those steps. So again, tasks, notes, system builder filled out. Second to last thing we're going to do is go to the expenses tab, which is the dollar sign on the far right. And above the plus sign, there's this pencil. We're going to click that. And this is where we are going to input the name of the person signing at the account. So I'm going to put somebody else's name. I'm going to click done. Now, team, remember, I don't want the signature of somebody who's actually doing the line cleaning, meaning my technicians. I want the signature of somebody at the account that can verify that you were there. If for whatever reason you can't get their signature, don't put an X. Just leave it blank and put a note in, especially if your service center or wholesaler requires that you grab signatures. And one of the updates on this latest application for DraftLine is that you can turn the screen sideways as well. Now, I can't show you that in the video because it's making my QuickTime player crash, but know that you can turn the phone sideways and you'll have a larger box. Again, up at the top right, click Done, and you'll see the signature pop up. One of the things that is vital on DraftLine is that you enter all of the information while you are on site. So please, please, please make sure that you do that because of the timestamps. If for whatever reason you lose signal, you can always contact support and they will help you override anything. So now that that is done, we're going to move back to the tasks page. And last thing is setting the checkout status. So we've done all of our steps. We're going to go back to the first button that we clicked, which was the check-in. We're now going to check out. Completed is a status where you came, you saw, you conquered. You did everything you were supposed to do, even if it was only cleaning a few of the beer lines for your wholesaler. That's what you were supposed to do. And that is considered completed on DraftLine. Completed drives everything to the billing report so we can charge for the faucets we're cleaning and also for our tracker, especially for our wholesalers, our productivity trackers. For anybody, really, we've got to make sure that we get as many trips into the completed status as possible. Partially completed, you are never going to use. That is for service and installation. We do not have partially completed line cleanings, period. No work performed. This is a special status that I came up with for my technicians where we show up to do our job, but for whatever reason we get turned away by the location. No beer. No brands for your wholesaler. That's a big one. Sometimes you go in, they don't have any of your products on tap. That means we're not supposed to clean lines there that day. Nobody home, no power, no longer open on Mondays, permanently closed, closed for renovation, whatever it is, you got to put it in there. So I have it as a note. So when we get to our audit season, we don't have any problems. So for this one, I'm going to put it in the completed status. I'm going to hit the back button at the top left, and you're going to see the Town Pump Tavern status update to completed. And I'm going to show you really quickly on Big Buck. This will be an example of a no work performed trip. I check in out by my vehicle before I go inside, and then I get inside and I realize, oh my gosh, no brands. No brands to clean. Hit that blue paper airplane. I go back to my tasks page and then I check out and I say no work performed. Hit the back arrow at the top left again, and again you see that status update. Now, we can go in and override that. So say they got their beer delivery, we check back in, and then we would go through our steps, pretend that's a recirc, save, and then on the faucets, I'll just say that we cleaned this one Stella, but of course you could go through and do your faucet change or add faucets. I'm going to save that at the bottom right. And then I'm going to hit the back button up at the top left, and I'm going to grab a signature. And of course I'm going to do my own name, which I shouldn't be. That's okay. In this example, click Done at the top right. and go back to the tasks. And now we're going to override this no work performed status into completed, and you'll see this update in real time. So the name of the game at the end of the day is to get all of these into the completed status. And one other thing real quick, once you're checked into an account, you will see that update. So that little blue circle means that you're checked in. You want to, like I said, for every check-in, we have to have a checkout. And as well, the ones that we're worried about really are the ones that aren't getting cleaned. So it's the accounts with no color coding. So at the end of the day, the name of the game is to have all of these trips into the completed status, which doesn't always happen. And when that doesn't happen, what we like for you to do is go in and check in, put a note in, say, couldn't clean today. Out of time, if that is the case. Blue paper airplane. And then we are going to check out and put no work performed. So if you can't get to an account for whatever reason, that's how we like it to be communicated. And as well, you shouldn't have any that you're checked into at the end of the day, obviously, but this is just for example purposes and to show you what the color coding means. So everybody should have the DraftLine support phone number, text number, which is the same, and also the email address. We are there at the ready to help you. Make sure that you over communicate with us, because that's how we can help and make sure that you get everything documented. And I wish everybody luck. Thank you so much for your attention today. Take care.